February 13, 2026, 0312 UTC. Ocean Infinity's hydroacoustic pipeline registers an anomalous 6.3 kHz ping radiating from a previously unmapped trench in Broken Ridge. Within minutes, an AUV swarm is diverted, and ROV feeds confirm the unmistakable shape of a Boeing 777, Malaysia Airlines livery intact, resting at 6,200 meters. 12 years of bathymetric shadow zones and failed sonar sweeps evaporate in a single detection. The evidence, thermodynamic scratches, undisturbed silt, uncorroded flaperons, forces a total rethink. Was this deliberate, not catastrophic? The chain of technical breakthroughs is only beginning. A 6.3 kHz signal, sharp and unmistakable, detonated across Ocean Infinity's hydroacoustic dashboard at exactly 0312 UTC. The alert chain snapped into motion. CTBTO's International Data Center flagged the anomaly, routing it through encrypted channels to the London Command Center. In less than 3 minutes, the filtered ping was isolated. A narrow band acoustic burst, 0.8 seconds in duration, with a harmonic structure that ruled out marine mammals or passing ships. The frequency profile matched neither known biological sources nor routine seismic activity. This was an engineered event, radiating from a trench in the Broken Ridge sector, far outside any previously mapped acoustic clutter. Inside the command center, Mission Director Dr. Lena Wu authorized the emergency protocol. The decision matrix required dual sign-off, with a technical go from Chief Technology Officer Morten Hivid and political clearance from the Malaysia liaison. Both approvals landed in the digital log by 0315 UTC. 22 minutes after the initial detection, the launch gantry aboard Armada 8605 released the first 3 Sea Raptor X autonomous underwater vehicles. Each AUV, rated for 6,200 meters, carried a dual-frequency synthetic aperture sonar and a high-frequency imaging array, all coordinated by Ocean AI version 4.2, an artificial intelligence path planner that could recalculate waypoints in real time based on incoming bathymetric data. The operational tempo was relentless. By 0412 UTC, the lead AUVs reached 4,000 meters, sonar arrays primed. The fleet fanned out, guided by artificial intelligence, optimized waypoints that exploited the latest bellhop propagation models, integrating sound speed profiles from real-time CTD casts. The mission brief made clear this was no routine sweep. The bathymetric shadow cast by Broken Ridge had shielded this trench from every previous sonar pass. Now, with the ping's bearing triangulated and the spectral fingerprint verified, the AUVs were tasked with a grid search targeting the acoustic epicenter. Telemetry streamed backscatter anomalies, then a hard object signature. The control room logged the timestamp, then escalated to full swarm deployment. 5 more AUVs launched in staggered sequence, maintaining continuous coverage over the predicted impact zone. Artificial intelligence flagged a rectangular structure, dimensions consistent with a Boeing 777-200ER fuselage, buried in silt but intact. The hydroacoustic anomaly had become a target of interest, and the operation shifted from detection to confirmation. Every previous failure, years of blank sonar screens and millions spent on fruitless arcs, had hinged on the limitations of earlier models. The bellhop algorithm, now tuned to the trench's precise stratification, predicted that a signal at 6.3 kHz would propagate cleanly through the deep sound channel, bypassing the scatter and loss that had masked the site for over a decade. The CTBTO alert chain, the dual authorization protocol, and the artificial intelligence-driven waypoint selection all converged in a 22-minute window that flipped the narrative from stalemate to pursuit. The search for MH370 had become a high-stakes technical chase, and for the first time, the odds favored discovery. At 0418 UTC, the remotely operated vehicle breached 6,200 meters, its floodlights piercing a haze of suspended silt. The first clear images transmitted to the command center revealed the unmistakable lines of a Boeing 707-200ER fuselage, resting upright on the trench floor. The Malaysia Airlines livery, faded but legible, traced across the forward section, an anomaly in the deep, a manufactured artifact preserved against all odds. No evidence of catastrophic breakup. The wings lay flush with the silt, both engines attached. The vertical stabilizer rose from the seabed, its red and blue insignia visible beneath a thin veil of microbial biofilm. The ROV pilot, voice steady but tight, called out serials and panel markings as the manipulator arm hovered inches from the airframe. Each pass of the high-definition camera revealed more: windows intact along the port side, cabin doors sealed, and the landing gear fully retracted. The only breach, a shallow gash aft of the wing root, showed no sign of explosive decompression or fire. Instead, the skin's surface bore the fine pitting of pressure corrosion, a rate measured at less than 0.01 millimeters per year in these conditions. The deep-sea environment, 620 atmospheres of pressure, near freezing water and oxygen levels below 1 milligram per liter, had arrested decay, leaving the structure eerily untouched. Biofilm colonies, pale and translucent, clustered along the rivet lines and panel joints. Unlike the rust blooms that devoured the Titanic at shallower depths, these microbial mats formed a protective glaze, inhibiting further oxidation. The livery's lead chromate pigments, chemically stable under low temperatures, resisted leaching. Even the emergency exit markings and registration codes remained visible in the ROV's searchlights. The fuselage's orientation told its own story. No evidence of a high-energy impact crater. The nose section rested in a shallow depression, silt undisturbed except for a narrow furrow trailing aft, a signature consistent with minimal forward velocity at contact. The right flaperon, still attached, displayed a deployed angle. The left wingtip, partially buried, showed no signs of explosive detachment. The environmental data logged by the ROV's sensors confirmed what the imagery suggested: unbroken cold, chemical inertness, and near absolute darkness had created a preservation chamber. The pilot's logbook entry, time-stamped to the second, captured the moment. Fuselage intact, livery visible, biofilm coverage mild, corrosion negligible. Recommend detailed control surface survey. For the first time in 12 years, the physical presence of MH370 was beyond doubt. Yet the condition of the wreck posed new questions. How had the aircraft survived descent and impact with so little structural compromise? The search for technical answers would now turn to the control surfaces, the deployed flaps, and the forensic details hidden in the silence of the deep. The first technical survey of the wreckage began with the control surfaces. The right flaperon, still mounted on its hinge, was locked at a deployed angle, precisely 23 degrees down, confirmed by high-resolution photogrammetry and finite element modeling. The left outboard flap, partially exposed from the silt, showed a similar extension. This configuration is not consistent with a high-speed, uncontrolled descent. In every known spiral dive scenario, control surfaces shear off or jam at neutral. Here, both flaperons and flaps were extended for maximum lift, a configuration only possible with deliberate input from the cockpit. Emphasis on controlled input is clear. Forensic specialists cross-referenced panel deformation with Boeing's proprietary finite element models. The absence of torsional buckling along the wing root and the clean, undistorted trailing edge ruled out an impact above 150 knots. Instead, the evidence pointed to a low-energy, controlled ditching. The narrow furrow trailing behind the nose, barely 3 meters wide, matched simulation outputs for a gear-up water landing at minimal forward velocity. Thermodynamic scratches, fine heat-induced scoring on the flap tracks, suggested the actuators were engaged seconds before the aircraft met the surface, their final positions preserved by sudden cold and pressure. The data points to a precise ditching. Attention shifted to the flight data recorder. The titanium alloy housing, rated for 5,000 meters, had survived 6,200 meters of pressure without breach. The chain of custody began with the remotely operated vehicle manipulator, logged at 12:45 Coordinated Universal Time, then transferred to the on-deck forensic lead, Dr. Elena Ortiz. Each handover was digitally signed and time-stamped, with blockchain hash verification ensuring an unbroken audit trail. In the mobile laboratory, non-destructive X-ray imaging mapped the NAND flash architecture, with no fractures and no water ingress. The memory module, extracted in a Class 100 clean enclosure, underwent a soft read at 0.5 volts, minimizing the risk of voltage stress errors after 12 years in the abyss. The recovery was methodical and secure. Error-correcting code verification flagged only minor parity shifts, all automatically corrected by the built-in error-correcting code. The cryptographic hash of the binary dump matched the reference sample from the manufacturer, confirming data integrity. Preliminary analysis of the flight data recorder final hours revealed a steady, autopilot-controlled descent, with altitude and airspeed trending smoothly downward. Cabin pressure logs flatlined below 0.8 pounds per square inch, consistent with a depressurization event. Yet, the autopilot remained engaged, and the control surface positions, flaps, slats, and pitch trim reflected a textbook ditching sequence, not a catastrophic loss of control. Autopilot behavior was decisive. The forensic team compared these readings with historical ghost flight cases. The data mirrored the 2016 Air France A319 and the 2023 Gulfstream G550 incidents, where aircraft continued on autopilot after silent depressurization. Here, however, the final moments diverged. The extension of the flaps and the absence of structural fragmentation pointed to human intervention, a final act of control in the cockpit. The evidence ruled out a death spiral. It pointed instead to a deliberate, low-energy water landing, executed with precision and silence in the shadow of the Broken Ridge Trench. Human intervention is implicated. Every detail, from the deployed flaperons to the unbroken chain of custody for the flight data recorder, now formed a chain of evidence. The technical findings demanded a new line of inquiry. Not just how the aircraft got here, but who or what guided it to its final rest. The trench that concealed MH370 for 12 years was no ordinary topographical feature. Marine geophysicist Dr. Jacob Rydell, reviewing the 2026 bathymetric grids, identified a sharp acoustic discontinuity along the western flank of Broken Ridge. This was the classic signature of a bathymetric shadow zone, a region where steep slopes and abrupt sediment drifts scatter sonar pulses and create a blind spot beneath the overhang. Earlier search missions relying on the 2014 40-meter grid multi-beam had swept past this sector without registering a single anomaly. But Ocean Infinity's new dual-frequency arrays, paired with real-time ray trace simulations, revealed the acoustic dead zone in stark relief. The bellhop model, run with updated conductivity temperature depth sound speed profiles, traced a clear path. Sonar beams from previous arcs refracted up and away, leaving the trench floor untouched by direct returns. The wreck had lain invisible, masked by the ridge's own geometry, a hidden chamber at 6,200 meters, immune to detection until a 6.3 kHz hydroacoustic anomaly finally betrayed its presence. Shadow, Dr. Rydell's team reconstructed the chain of missed opportunities. In 2018, the autonomous underwater vehicles skirted the ridge's shadow, their synthetic aperture sonar never dipping into the acoustic lee. Only the 2026 mission, with its steeper descent angle and 5-meter pixel imaging, broke through the barrier. The technical verdict was unambiguous. The bathymetric shadow zone had functioned as a natural cloaking device, defeating every prior attempt to locate the fuselage by sonar alone. Cloaking. Yet, the geological concealment was only half the story. As the remotely operated vehicle survey extended into the cockpit, cybersecurity analyst Priya Deshmukh flagged an anomaly in the avionics bay. The Boeing 777 integrated modular avionics should have presented a standard layout: flight management system, dual AR-INC, 429 data buses, and the communications management unit arrayed in sequence. But a small, unauthorized module was spliced into the communications management unit primary bus, its housing marked only by a faded maintenance tag and a string of hexadecimal firmware codes. This device, later dubbed Silent Passenger, matched the profile leaked in Dr. Ahmed Nasir's 2022 whistleblower dossier, a covert transponder bypass module designed to interface at the communications management unit level, capable of disabling the transponder and suppressing ACARS transmissions without alerting the cockpit voice recorder. Silent Passenger. Deshmukh's preliminary analysis reconstructed the attack surface. The module's logic board, soldered to the communications management unit maintenance access port, contained a programmable logic array with a dormant code signature identical to the binary hash published in the 2023 Cybersecurity Bulletin. If activated, the module could inject malformed ARINC 429 frames, triggering a firmware rollback and isolating the flight control computers from ground-based tracking. The physical evidence, burnished solder, non-standard wiring, and a tamper-evident seal broken, pointed to deliberate installation, not a manufacturing error. Rollback. The implications were immediate. The presence of the Silent Passenger device resurrected the remote hijack hypothesis that MH370's disappearance from secondary radar and the abrupt loss of ACARS signals were not the result of a cockpit emergency, but the calculated effect of an embedded logic bomb. The technical chain, bathymetric shadow masking the wreck and a cyber-physical exploit masking the aircraft's digital trail, suggested a coordinated effort to erase both the physical and electronic evidence of the flight's fate. Remote hijack. Dr. Riedel and Deshmukh's findings reframed the investigation. The bathymetric shadow zone explained how the wreck evaded a decade of sonar sweeps. The Silent Passenger device, hidden in plain sight within the avionics bay, introduced a new vector for sabotage, a vulnerability that could have rendered the aircraft invisible by design. Vulnerability D. As the forensic teams logged the module's serials and extracted its flash memory, the political and legal stakes began to escalate. The technical evidence now pointed beyond accident or error, raising questions of intent, access, and accountability that would soon ignite a diplomatic firestorm. Legal analysts convened in Kuala Lumpur as diplomatic cables raced between Malaysia and Beijing. The discovery of the intact fuselage triggered an immediate dispute over custody. Malaysia cited ICAO Annex 13, asserting its right as the state of registry to direct the investigation and retain primary control over all evidence. China, referencing UNCLOS Article 56 and the 2015 Joint Investigation Agreement, countered with a claim for co-leadership, arguing that the wreck's location within a contested exclusive economic zone and the high number of Chinese nationals on board entitled it to equal access. The standoff put the chain of evidence at risk. With both nations unwilling to yield, transfer of the recovered flight data recorder was halted on the deck of Armada 8605. Only a temporary joint custody arrangement brokered by an International Court of Arbitration observer allowed the FDR to move to a neutral forensic lab in Singapore. There, Malaysian and Chinese teams conducted parallel analysis, each monitored by audit trails logged on a blockchain and oversight by independent third parties. Meanwhile, the financial stakes drove the operation's relentless pace. Ocean Infinity's contract, signed in March 2025, included a no-find, no-fee clause, with a $5 million base fee and a $35 million bonus payable only if the wreck was located and independently verified. An escrow account managed by a maritime arbitration firm held the funds until a geodesist based in Singapore confirmed the coordinates. Every hour of delay risked not only diplomatic fallout, but the forfeiture of millions in performance bonuses. The evidence, and the truth it carried, now moved under armed guard and legal shadow, its fate as uncertain as the search that found it. Richard Godfrey, a retired engineer and amateur radio operator, spent years tracking faint signals in the static. Using Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, WSEPR, he mapped a corridor of radio disturbances stretching from the Andaman Sea to the southern Indian Ocean. Each data point was a whisper, low-power transmissions, sometimes less than 5 watts, bouncing off the ionosphere and registering on receivers thousands of kilometers apart. In 2021, Godfrey published a predicted path for MH370, arguing that the aircraft's presence disrupted the global WSPR network at regular intervals. His model placed the final descent within 15 kilometers of the coordinates now confirmed by Ocean Infinity's autonomous underwater vehicles. For years, the method was dismissed as speculative. Official investigators favored satellite handshakes and drift modeling. But the discovery of the fuselage, almost precisely where Godfrey's heat maps converged, forced a reappraisal. In a recorded statement, Godfrey called it the universe finally nodding to the crowdsourced data. Yet, for all the technical vindication, the question of intent remained. The hydroacoustic anomalies, the bathymetric shadow zone, the silent cockpit device, each offered a piece of the puzzle. But no model, no signal, could fully explain why the flight vanished into silence. The physical evidence spoke volumes, but the motive behind the disappearance stayed just out of reach. Today, hydroacoustic anomalies and bathymetric shadow zones no longer shelter the unknown. The intact fuselage, preserved at 6,200 meters, forces a new paradigm in crash forensics and flight security. As thermodynamic scratches and silent avionics betray human intent, every future investigation must reckon with technology's limits and responsibility's reach. The ocean masked the truth, but now the world must decide what to do with it. Share your perspective below.